Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jen Benka, the Executive Director of the New Literary Arts Fund. We're very happy to welcome you to our first research presentation for the nonprofit literary arts field. For a visual description, I'm a white person with light brown gray hair pulled back, wearing brown glasses, and a black turtleneck and black sweater.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Campagna, and I'm the Literary Arts Fund's Engagement Director. Quick visual description of myself. I'm a white woman with shoulder-length red hair, and I'm wearing a black sweater.
Good afternoon. I'm Nikay Paredes. I am the fund's grants director. A visual description. I'm a woman with tan skin and straight black hair pulled back. I'm also wearing blue glasses and a dark green blouse. A few quick notes. We are recording this session so that we can share it with you later. If you're using an AI note-taking platform or bot, we kindly ask that you turn it off or have your bot leave the webinar. I want to thank, of course, our ASL interpreters, Mona and later Moxie, for working with us today. To turn on captioning for this information session, you can click on the CC or the captions button at the bottom of your screen. We'll also be sending a follow-up email to this session that will include a link to this presentation as well as a survey. As we are on Zoom webinar mode, you can submit any questions you have throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. As our time is limited, we'll answer a few questions today and address others in a newsletter in the coming weeks and possibly also in a future information session. We'd be very grateful if you kept your questions to today's presentation. If you have general questions about the Literary Arts Fund, you can write to info@literaryartsfund.org. We will also hold an information session about our Innovation Project grant opportunity on June 18th. So please visit our website and sign up for our newsletter to learn more and to stay tuned.
Thanks, Nikai. So before we start our presentation, we thought that it might be helpful to get a quick sense of who's in the room. Michelle, will you kick off a short poll?
Yes, I am launching the poll now, so folks should see that poll window pop up on the screen. And we'll give folks a few seconds to answer. Looks like we've got about half the room. All right, about 3/4 have responded so far. All right, give it a few more seconds. Okay. All right, I'm going to share the results. It looks like we have a good showing on the presenter side and well, really all around, publishers, presenters, and supporters. So thank you all for taking that quick poll. I will stop sharing now.
Thanks for that, Michelle, and thanks everyone. Useful to know who's in the room, and great that we have a really good mix of literary arts nonprofits. We wanted to start by just saying a few brief things about the Literary Arts Fund for those of you who might not be familiar with us because we're a new project. We are a special project to dramatically increase support for and the visibility of the nonprofit literary arts field for the next 5 years toward ensuring a healthy and more robust U.S. literary culture in support of creative writers. The fund has 4 strategies: grant making in support of general operating and innovation, made possible by special one-time gifts from foundations that were on top of their own grant making budgets. Our first general operating grants will be announced at the end of May next month. And we'll open a new call for general operating applications in January 2027. We'll have a call for innovation project grant applications that will open in June. Secondly, we will be offering learning opportunities for the field, including sessions addressing topics that will be helpful if you are applying to the Literary Arts Fund. We will conduct research and share learnings and data like we are doing today with the field and funders. At the end of our presentation deck, we will have a slide with reports and resources that we'll reference today that might be of interest. The Literary Arts Fund will also be helping to storytell for the field, which will include helping to amplify the work of future grantees. And finally, the Literary Arts Funders Collaborative, which is a new affinity group for grant makers and a key way for us to educate the philanthropic community about the literary arts. We wanted to be sure that you had two upcoming sessions on your radar, and we hope that you might be interested in them. Budget Best Practices on Thursday, May 7th at 2 Eastern, and more on the Innovation Project grants, where we'll be holding an information session, as Nikai mentioned, on Thursday, June 18th, also at 2 p.m. Eastern. For today's session, we'll share some information about the impact of the literary arts, as well as the challenges facing this artistic discipline and how the nonprofit literary arts field works to mitigate those challenges. You will likely be aware of some or all of the impacts and challenges we describe, but we hope and might even suggest the language, framing, and information we'll offer might be helpful to you as you communicate the value and necessity of your nonprofit's work to support creative writers to your internal and external stakeholders, including your board, donors, and prospective supporters. Please see the research that we'll share today as just an initial offering and a kind of baseline of data and information that we'll be adding to over time. If it's useful for you to quote or cite Literary Arts Fund content or data from this presentation, we've added citation information at the end of this presentation deck for your reference that you'll find when we share the deck. And with that, let's begin with the transformative impact that writers and literature have on culture.
Books are the carriers of civilization. Without books, history is silent. Henry David Thoreau.
Literature is important to our past, present, and future. Literature is a compelling expression of information and site of documentation, where journalism, which is rooted in objectivity and accurate information, provides the factual context of current events. Literature, which is rooted in subjectivity and imagination, is creative expression that places ideas and events in the realm of the personal. Both are essential records of our times.
The page is where things are slow enough for me to really think in a way that feels necessary and enlivening. Aracelis Girmay.
Reading activates our imagination and inspires reflection. Reading stories and poems transports us outside of the day-to-day as language unfolds images on the page. This exercise helps us dream of different paths, possibilities, and new futures. Reading is also slow art. It takes time to read, which makes room for us to engage in personal reflection, a gift in the attention economy.
You think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read James Baldwin.
Reading reminds us we're not alone. Amid what has been called an epidemic of loneliness, in books we find stories and poems that resonate with our experience and comfort us. As we read, the author companions us.
Words can empower or break a person, a community, a nation. But when we share stories with one another, we are reminded of our shared humanity. Shugri Sal.
Reading uniquely encourages empathy and prompts compassion. Stories and poems help us understand one another, replete with our challenges and aspirations across generations, cultures, communities, and geographies. While literature and reading encourage these qualities that so positively contribute to our lives and the health of our communities, writers and their stories in reading are at risk. According to the NEA's most recent arts participation survey, which is conducted alongside the US Census, the majority of Americans don't read books. The NEA reports that less than half of the US population read any book in 2022. The number of fiction readers, less than 40%, is the lowest in 40 years. While the NEA noted growth in audiobook listenership in its survey, that didn't offset the downward trend the agency reported. We also know that fewer full-length novels are being taught in English classes as books and reading are being decentered and replaced with short-form content that, like social media content, is snappy and snackable. AI has raised numerous legal, ethical, financial, and philosophical questions that affect creative writers, including, of course, tech companies training LLMs on copyrighted works without permission or compensation to authors, and new texts produced by generative AI competing with books authored by humans. Commercial publishers acquiring smaller publishers and merging with other big publishers has resulted in fewer opportunities for writers. There is increased focus on titles with mass market appeal and authors with name recognition and large followings. Excuse me. It's hard for first-time authors to break in. And because there are just 5 big publishing houses, there's less leverage for authors to negotiate advances. In the past year plus, we've seen 2 big book distributors abruptly go out of business, causing a crisis for some publishers and making it harder for books to reach buyers and readers. Relatedly, fees for distributors' services, warehousing rather, and marketing are expensive. As media publications continue to disaggregate content and cut book sections, there are fewer editorially driven book reviews highlighting new titles for readers and encouraging literary conversations. Books are being challenged at unprecedented rates in cities and towns across the country, in schools and public libraries, resulting in less access to them and the stories they hold. Recent reports indicate that effects on authors include lost sales and honoraria from canceled events, and even difficulties publishing their work. So how do literary arts nonprofits and the nonprofit literary arts field address these challenges? First, we wanted to offer a working definition of both that might be helpful. The literary arts, like the visual arts and the performing arts, are an artistic discipline. They encompass creative writing and literature, including creative nonfiction, fiction, and poetry. The nonprofit literary arts field is made up of organizations and publishers that provide creative writers with a wide range of support and opportunities that are distinct from what commercial publishing and public libraries offer. In total, the field sustains the vitality and independence of American literature and ensures that a wide spectrum of voices and ideas continues to shape our collective imagination. And at this point, I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Nikai, who will share some more specifics.
Thank you, Jen, and hello again, everyone. I'm pleased to share more about the many and impactful ways in which your literary arts nonprofits and your staff are uniquely serving creative writers and addressing the aforementioned challenges. You uniquely engage communities nationwide by promoting the benefits and joy of reading, distributing free books, and offering events such as author conversations, book festivals, open mics, reading series, and writing workshops. You assist and advocate for writers by providing information, education, and resources about the writing life and publishing process, from contracts to publicity and promotion. You make space for writers from a myriad of communities and aesthetic perspectives, including those intellectually rigorous and artistically adventurous voices whose writing challenges and deepens our culture. You nurture and mentor writers by providing residencies, retreats, and workshops that enable the creation of new work, inspire cross-discipline investigations, and foster artistic development, including among culturally specific communities. You support writers financially by providing monetary awards, fellowships, and prizes, paying writers' fees and honoraria, offering emergency grants, and employing writers as teaching artists and staff members. You publish writers in print and digital magazines, journals, and books, often being the first place of publication for writers, helping to launch careers, open doors to other opportunities, and showcase work across one's writing life. Notably, a vast amount of poetry, as well as translated and experimental literature, is published, presented, and supported by nonprofits. You build writers' readership through feature articles, book reviews, and author interviews in print and on social media, websites, podcasts, and other new media that generate conversations about books. How many literary arts nonprofits are there? There are more than 1,000 incorporated literary arts nonprofits. There are many hundreds more literary arts groups and publishers that have not incorporated, use fiscal agents, or are housed at universities. How much do independent literary arts nonprofits raise, earn, and spend? In 2023, there were 267 independent incorporated literary arts nonprofits that had an annual revenue of more than $50,000. This segment included different types of literary arts nonprofits, such as presenters, publishers, and supporters, serving a wide variety of communities and audiences. The Literary Arts Fund studied IRS 990 tax forms from 2023 so we might have as complete a data set as possible. There can sometimes be a lag in filing. As we were studying 990 forms, we focused on the segment of the field with budgets over 50,000. Nonprofits with budgets below 50,000 are not required to submit financial data to the IRS, and so this information is not publicly available. As a point of comparison, according to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, in 1989, there were 74 literary arts nonprofits with an annual revenue of over $50,000. And in 2012, there were 175 literary arts nonprofits with an annual revenue of over $50,000. As you can see in this bar graph, the field has grown steadily from 1989 to today. In 2023, the segment of 267 literary arts nonprofits had a total revenue of more than $325 million and total expenses of more than $292 million. As another point of comparison, the total expenses of this segment of the nonprofit literary arts field is smaller than the total expenses of a major art museum in one of the 4 largest cities in the US. Of the 267 literary arts nonprofits, as you can see in this pie chart, 69.3% are organizations that present creative writers at events. So that includes festivals, readings, lectures, conversations, and open mics, and also provide them with support, such as through workshops, residencies, prizes, or mentorship. 30.7% are publishers, and of this, 47 entities publish books and 35 publish journals or magazines. And now I'd like to hand things over to my colleague, Michelle.
Thanks, Nikai. Let's now take a look at the reach of the nonprofit literary arts field. Literary arts nonprofits serve thousands of writers and millions of unique audience members in person and online through your websites, books, magazines, events, and festivals, among other activities. Literary arts nonprofits have cultural reach, impact, and influence far beyond your budgets. We'll have more data on this in the future, which will help illustrate this point more concretely. So, where are literary arts nonprofits located? In terms of geography, in 2023, 88% of the 267 literary arts nonprofits were in cities. We attribute this to access to funding, audiences, and transportation. 44% were in New York and California, and raised and spent 58% of the total revenue and expenses of the 267. 29 out of 50 states, or 58%, had 0 to 2 literary arts nonprofits, chiefly in the Midwest and the South. The Midwest and the South, compared to the Northeast and West, have larger populations, but fewer literary arts nonprofits. As you can see in this map of the US, the Midwest and South have just 90 of the 267 literary arts nonprofits, which is 38%. What are the budget ranges of these 267 literary arts nonprofits? Of the 267, the majority, 71%, had operating budgets of less than $1 million. The median operating budget was $450,000. As you can see in this pie chart, an exceptionally small number of literary arts nonprofits have budgets over $5 million, just 8. And 70% have budgets below $600,000. And the largest concentration of literary arts nonprofits is in the $100,000 to $300,000 range. How are literary arts nonprofits funded? In 2023, of the 267 literary arts nonprofits, organizations had revenue that was 77% contributed and 23% earned through writing workshops, classes, and events, among other activities. Publishers had revenue that was 57% contributed and 43% earned through things like book sales, rights, and licensing. When compared to all arts and culture organizations, the literary arts field is more or nearly as dependent on contributed revenue. The vast majority of nonprofit literary arts organizations don't sell season tickets or have robust admissions fees. Also, nonprofit publishers are not covering costs from sales alone. This is in part because the books published are not mass market, plot driven titles by well known authors geared toward generating profits, and distribution is a challenge. Nonprofit publishers recognize, as Percival Everett said, that art does not find its way forward in a search for commercial success. The writers published, in many cases, are first time and emerging authors building their audience. Because literary arts nonprofit organizations and publishers don't have a majority of earned income, contributed income is essential to serving writers and readers. And now I'd like to bring Jen back on screen.
Thanks, Michelle. So, knowing that literary arts nonprofits need to be fueled by philanthropy, the Literary Arts Fund investigated how supportive foundations have been of literature. Using Candid's foundation directory, we examined 2023 giving by foundations to different artistic disciplines. And what we found was deeply concerning. According to our research, in 2023, of the $5 billion granted to arts and culture organizations by foundations, literature and writing received $96 million, or just 1.9%. We confirmed that this percentage has essentially been consistent year over year for at least the last 5 years. This has profound, challenging effects on the nonprofit literary arts field. As you can see in this pie chart, the funding literature and writing receives, that smallest slice, is far less than the other artistic disciplines. It's half of dance, which at 4.9% received the second least funding, and 49% less than theater, which received the most. This data point is startling and compelling, and we hope it might help you activate your community of current and prospective supporters. We wanted to note that we'll be sharing some infographics that we'll be preparing, including one that features this information in the event that you want to share it with your communities, and we'll get that to you in the days ahead. This data point also raises the question, what has contributed to the nonprofit literary arts field being so underfunded by philanthropic institutions? And we'd suggest a few key misperceptions that we've consistently encountered. The literary arts as a distinct artistic discipline and as a nonprofit arts field lacks recognition and understanding. Contributing to this is the fact that the field we serve is so broad. It includes many different types of nonprofits, as we've described, from book and magazine publishers to book and writers festivals, to literary centers in different regions, to writers fellowships, residencies, to presenting organizations, and beyond. To improve on this, excuse me, will take some time and consistent messaging. It's why we're sharing the framing that we've offered today, and it's also why we've named our project so straightforwardly and have identified storytelling as one of our strategies. It's also why we're continually and consistently using the terms literary arts and nonprofit literary arts field. We've also encountered the fact that the literary arts are often confused with the library and literacy fields, as well as commercial publishing. And while these are also important parts of the literary ecosystem, they're, of course, distinct from the nonprofit literary arts field. There are more than 9,000 public libraries. Literacy organizations focus on fundamental skill building. And commercial publishing, which is profit-driven, as we've been describing, has a different focus and motivation. People are often unaware that there even is a nonprofit publishing sector, not to mention, as we shared, that it's a central source of poetry and translated works. And among those who might know about nonprofit publishers, there's the misconception that book sales alone cover all of your expenses. People don't have a sense of how much time, expertise, and labor are required to make a book, from editorial staff and graphic designers to printers and distributors, to name just a few, not to mention the financial resources, including advances and royalties that are required. For literary arts nonprofits that present events, it's not understood that you have to pay for or maintain event spaces, and that you have to adequately compensate the writers you feature. Another misperception is that there are no or very few administrative costs associated with awarding literary prizes. The positive is that there is an opportunity to educate stakeholders about the meaningful difference they can make for your literary arts nonprofits and the creative writers you serve. As Marilynne Robinson said, when other generations look back to see how and whether we were sufficient to the demands our times will have made of us, they will look at what we wrote and published and read. And at this time, we will answer a few questions that have come in, and I'd like to invite my colleagues Nikai and Michelle to come back. And there they are. And while they go through the questions that you all have sent in, I thought I'd warm up the Q&A by just going back to one of the stats that we shared and offering a little bit more detail. As Nakai shared, that segment of 267 nonprofits in total had $325.3 million in revenue and $292.9 million in expenses. There's a difference there, and it shows there's more revenue than expenses. We attribute that to timing. Again, this data is based on IRS 990 forms. Depending on when grant funds come in versus when those funds are expended, based on project dates, that's how we explain that gap. We certainly don't want anyone to think that the field is flush, because that is just not what we see at all.
Um, I guess our first question, I'm just combining because there are a few that are coming in just asking about will the graphics that we presented be shared?
Yeah.
And if the session is being recorded, yes, to
Yes.
both. Since you're here in the webinar and you're signed up, you should receive infographics from us in this report in the week ahead. Um, but Jen, I do have a question here for you. Can you tell us about the 1.9%? Who are those funders?
That is a great question. And I just want to shout out for folks who have questions, please send them along to Michelle and Nakai. We're not able to answer based on raised hands. I'm not sure if folks can see that. Just wanted to clarify that. Who are the 1.9%? I'm happy to give a little detail on that. And I'm also happy to say that we will be expanding our data and research, and we'll share more on that piece of information ahead. But that 1.9% is made up of more than 1,400 grant makers, if I recall, most of which are family foundations and local foundations that are giving to specific projects and sometimes specific issue areas. And the median grants were relatively small. The median, I think, was around 10,000. And Michelle, feel free to fact check me as I'm saying this in real time. For us, that really speaks to kind of the inside outness of fundraising, which is the importance of really activating your local donors, your local funders, and building out from there. Again, the majority of support that is coming in to the field right now is at the local level from local funders. I hope that helped.
Jen, I have another question for you here.
Okay.
The general operating grant application collected a lot of data. Are are you going to share that with the field at some point?
Yes. So thanks to all of you who applied for a general operating grant. We did ask in that application for data as the questioner there mentioned. We hope that it was data that you're regularly tracking, and we will, as we asked folks who applied to give us an okay, we will be sharing information back with the field in aggregate. So that's work ahead for us. And yes, you can expect to learn more from us about what we've learned through that process. We very much hope along our project, the next 5 years, to share our learnings with all of you.
I'm also seeing a lot of questions here asking specifically about our specific grant programs and asking about our guidelines. And we encourage you to go to our website, literaryartsfund.org, to learn more about our eligibility criteria, about important dates to note for our grant open calls, and also sign up for our newsletter to stay updated.
I will throw one in there too. A question that has come in, and they're really flying in. Um, how does this data you've shared compare to data for other artistic disciplines?
That's a great question. And we don't know yet, to be perfectly honest. That's something on our list that we hope to investigate and hope to come back to you all with. There isn't a lot of great kind of cross artistic discipline information out there right now. We can share a couple things that we know, which is there isn't a great corollary on the publishing side of the field, right? While there is a wonderful nonprofit publisher in the theater community, um, I think there's really just one. There isn't a whole kind of section of the field that is devoted to publishing like we have in the literary arts. In terms of size, we know that the literary arts field is a little smaller than other artistic disciplines. There are more than 700 nonprofit dance companies, more than 2,000 nonprofit theater companies. Um, Music is also a big artistic discipline with about 2,000 nonprofit companies. But in music, when you look at sort of subcategories like opera, there are about 200 professional nonprofit opera companies. So there's just different ways of kind of looking across the disciplines. But I will say this, and this is important, that just because the literary arts nonprofit field is smaller than other artistic disciplines, that does not warrant um, the lack of investment that we've seen and the field being so under-resourced. While we're presenting literary events, for example, uh, and we don't have costumes and curtains and other things, again, some of the misperceptions that we've shared, there still are production costs associated with literary events, and we still have artists that need to be paid. So we have debunking work ahead. But again, it's a great question and it's important, and we hope to have more information across artistic disciplines ahead. I hope that was helpful. Other questions? Sorry, thanks for your patience all, as I know Michelle and Nikai are trying to bundle like questions and make sure that we're covering um, topics that lots of folks are curious about.
hmm I have one here, Jen.
Okay, great.
Just asking about the Literary Arts Fund and the fund being time bound. Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit more about that?
So, sure, this is a 5-year project. It's meant as a strategic infusion of funds into the field and also an effort to, at the same time and relatedly, raise the visibility of the field. It is not a new institution. We're fiscally sponsored. We are not our own 501(c)(3). We are designed to, again, only be here for a short period of time.
I have another one. Do these numbers include government grants?
So that is a great question. And I know that when we looked at the slide comparing contributed revenue with the SMU data arts info, we did include public and private. We the the candid data did not include public grants. The 267 data includes all contributed. if that makes sense. So again, the information that we shared today in the presentation really has those two big data sources. The 267 segment comes from IRS 990 forms, and then the information about funding comes from Candid. And so there are slight differences there. Good question.
I'm seeing two questions here that are kind of related, so I'm just gonna combine them. Thank you for the folks who submitted these. One is just asking in general, what is contributed income? And then the other is asking, do you have more to say about the sources of earned revenue for the different kinds of literary arts nonprofits?
Sure. So contributed revenue is any kinds of funds that are donated to you. They typically come from donors and foundations, and as was noted, government sources. Earned revenue is money that you make. So it comes from sales. It can, if you are lucky enough to have an endowment, and that endowment throws off some income, that is included in earned revenue. So it's funding that you drive yourself, you make, versus funding and money that you receive.
All right. Got time for a few more. Does Literary Arts Fund have any plans to host convenings of organizations to help promote collaboration and shared learning?
So that is something that we're looking at. Right now, we're looking at that related to future grantees. But certainly we understand the value of bringing people together. We hope over time that we will continue to offer spaces like this in different ways. And as Nakai mentioned, we hope that you'll sign up for our newsletter to stay tuned to what we'll be offering in the future.
All right. Let's do two more questions, just with an eye on the clock. So I'm bundling a couple questions actually.
Okay, great.
There were a few that came in about other research that the Literary Arts Fund would recommend to the field.
So when we share the presentation slides, we have a slide in the deck. We just didn't show it today that lists all of the studies that we referenced. We've also included some additional suggested reading. There's a dearth of research about the literary arts field. However, there is a lot of research out there that is applicable to the field, and we're compiling that as well for you all, and just thinking about the best way to share that, probably on our website at some point. The other two studies I would point to that are field specific and recent and current are the study that was done by the Literary Arts Emergency Fund during the pandemic, which looked at applicants to that COVID relief fund. We're happy to include a link to that in our deck and follow up to this presentation. And then more recently, the study Magnitude and Bond that was done by Kaveh Khanam, that was a field scan of Black literary organizations. Those two studies are really important, and we're grateful to the folks that made those happen. And we'll share links to those as well.
All right. Final question.
Okay.
When you say you are educating the philanthropic community, what do you mean by that?
That's a good question. So we know, as we shared today, that the philanthropic community hasn't yet really grasped what the literary arts means as an artistic discipline and as a field. Again, the language that we shared with you is language that we hope will be helpful to you as you talk to your funders um, and your local philanthropic community. It's some of the language that we're sharing with the funders that we're working with. And when we say we're educating the philanthropic community, we're talking about foundations that give to the arts and culture, um, predominantly aren't funding in the literary arts space yet. Um, we hope, as we're making information and resources available to you all as a field, that we're also making resources available to the philanthropic field, so that they learn more about you and the good work that you do, so that by the end of our project, we hope that we've helped move the needle. Again, I do think that it is going to take time and consistent messaging, and frankly, it's going to take all of us um, working on the grassroots level, on the local level, the regional level, the national level. We're starting from 1.9%. We have a lot to do, um, and we're excited to help. I'm sure that there were questions that we didn't get to, everyone. Please, as Nakai said up top, we will go through all those questions. We will either share some answers or resources in future newsletters, or maybe package another information session so that we can respond to that. Appreciate all the positive feedback you are sending. And again, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter, stay in touch with us. And again, we look forward to helping.
Thank you, everyone,
Thanks,
for your
everyone.
questions and for attending.
Thank you. See you soon.
Bye, everyone.